Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November meeting of the Board of Early Education and Care. I want to thank those of you here in the room with us and watching online for joining us. We have a full agenda this afternoon that reflects both the progress we've made and the important decisions ahead as we continue to strengthen the Commonwealth's early education and care system. Following routine business and opening remarks, our first major discussion today centers on the 2026-2030 Strategic Action Plan. This is important work for the agency, a culmination of engagement with families, educators, program leaders, and partners across the state. The plan sets the course for the next 5 years across 5 objectives: family access, program stability, program quality, workforce supports, and agency infrastructure. The draft plan that will be presented today captures both the challenges and opportunities before us as we head into December for a full vote of the board on the plan. We'll then turn to a vote on the proposed revisions to the standards for the licensure of residential programs to put out to public comment, which, as a reminder, have not undergone a comprehensive update since 1995. The revisions before us modernize language, promote inclusivity, align with our sister agencies, and most importantly, center the experience of the children and young parents these programs serve. I want to acknowledge in advance the thoughtful and collaborative work that went into this, especially the engagement of providers, advocates, and other state partners who helped shape these recommendations alongside our phenomenally talented staff here at EEC. Finally, we'll hear an update on family access and child care financial assistance, including trends in caseload and wait lists in the program investments that continue to make care more accessible and affordable for families across the Commonwealth. The growth we're seeing reflects both the impact of the reforms made in recent years and the continued demand for care for families across Massachusetts. Taken together, today's agenda highlights the scope and complexity of EEC's work and the shared responsibility we have as a board to guide these efforts thoughtfully with an eye towards equity, stability, and sustainability. Before I turn it over to the Secretary, I want to recognize Board Member Travers, who's joining us virtually. With that, I'll turn it over to the Secretary for opening comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I always feel like when you say we have a full agenda, it's a signal to me to be
almost
brief.
edited my comments today for I knew you were going to do that. So I was like, I got to say something different.
It's all good.
Next month, there's a curveball coming.
All right, fair enough. All right, very good. Well, I will make an attempt to be brief and offer comments in 2 buckets. One of concern and support, and the other is hope. An area of obvious concern right now is around Head Start. We know that in Massachusetts, those programs serve about 11,000 children and employ about 4,000 early education professionals. We would all agree, I believe, on the transformational value of those programs to children, to families. In fact, Commissioner Kershaw and I observed the depth of professionalism and the brilliance and care at the Head Start program in in Plymouth, the South Shore Early Education Program just 2 weeks ago, which was wonderful. We all know that as of November 1st, several Head Start programs in Massachusetts lost access to their federal funding. I feel proud and privileged to work in an administration that centers early education and care, and that Governor Healy advanced the state Head Start supplemental funding to several Head Start programs who are facing disruptions due to the federal government shutdown. I want to be clear, however, that Massachusetts does not have the funds to make up for the nearly $190 million that Head Start programs receive from the federal government each year, but this move certainly will help in the short term. I don't need to tell anyone in this room how important these programs are to our communities, to families, to children, and the professionals who work there. I want to say definitively that we'll do everything in our power to support and keep organizations open and running smoothly so that they can continue to provide the rich experiences and care for our youngest learners. This is no doubt a challenging time with compounding factors. The halt of SNAP benefits is impacting families, many of the same families who are concerned about the disruption of Head Start programs. In the past 10 months, I've frequently remarked on how privileged I feel to live in this state and the way that programs and communities have stepped up in a context where food security programs are in jeopardy is really heartening. That type of orientation and selflessness gives me hope, and I also experience that same hopeful orientation every time I have the privilege of visiting a provider. On the final stop of the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, or CPPI, roadshow, Commissioner Kershaw and I had the opportunity to spend a few hours at Pathways for Children in Gloucester. These visits, I would say for myself, and I think the Commissioner would agree, are very much about a celebration as much as they are about learning. We celebrate the depth of the partnerships between the Gloucester Public Schools, Kindred Gardens, the YMCA, and Pathways for Children. We saw a partnered effort to expand opportunities for pre-K and establish services and systems with the child and family at the very center. With pride, I continuously share that our goal of universal access to pre-K for 4-year-olds is centered around the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative with the mixed delivery strategy therein. It gives me hope when I have the opportunity to see what's possible on visits like that to Gloucester. Mr. Chairman, I will end on that note.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing
brief?
bringing in the value of hope into the room today and into the conversation. So thank you. I'll turn it over to the Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary. It's been truly an honor to have the opportunity to be on the road, elevating and bringing attention to our Head Start programs and the educators who work there and the partnerships that are embodied by our Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative. So I look forward to continuing some road shows and working with some of the other communities as well. Just adding a little bit on the Head Start, we obviously continue to monitor the status of the current shutdown. As I reported to the board, there were 6 of the 28 Head Start programs that were affected by the November 1 renewal date, so federal funding effectively stopped for those programs. Through the advance, the governor approved for the state supplemental funds. It's temporary bridge funding that we hope keep those programs open. We had 5 programs take us up on that offer, and 1 in the South Shore part of the Commonwealth that are currently closed. It's about 500 Head Start children who are not currently in services at the moment. We are working closely with them as well as our other Head Start partners across the state, hoping for additional funds coming from the federal government and seeing them getting back to work. There are 3 Head Start programs with a December 1 renewal date, so we'll be making the same opportunity for advanced funding to those programs if necessary, again, in order to bridge some time. We think 3 or 4 weeks at most, given the amount of funding that's available. So, and we remain deeply concerned about the potential disruption for the children's learning, for our educators, and for our programs and providers, all of whom operate on a pretty tight margin financially. We are grateful for our partnership with the Mass Head Start Association, as well as the partners in the programs. And we look forward to continuing to work with them to try and maintain access to services as much as possible. Last week we had a happy announcement. So on the hope side of the ledger, the Haley Driscoll administration announced $14 million in new capital grant funding for 28 programs from Chatham to Pittsfield, improving health and safety, new outdoor spaces, new indoor spaces, improvements in play areas, making spaces greener, and really centering the experience of children, families, and educators. So the capital grant strategy, the capital investment strategy, is one really key lever that this administration has been using to create more affordable, accessible, high-quality early education and care. And under this administration, the amount of funding for capital grants has increased quite a bit. So we've been able to reach more center-based programs through large grants where we're expanding and adding additional seats, as well as through small grants that are really making improvements in the learning and the places that children live, learn, and play. We also are in the midst of the next round of our Family Child Care Capital Grant Program, which is the first of its kind ever in the Commonwealth. It's the second round. That application closed on October 31st, and we received 783 applications, totaling requests of $16 million. We have $4 million in funding, but that continues to obviously demonstrate the need for improvements within our family child care programs as well. And they're anticipating awards of those being made in spring of 2026. We're also looking ahead to the next round of the center-based childcare capital grants, which is our early education out-of-school time capital grant program that we manage in partnership with CDAC and the Children's Investment Fund. And we're hoping that application for the next round, which will be about $11 million approved through the governor's capital investment plan, application will be available in December, at least during the winter. And so keep an eye on our website for information about that. We also had a deadline reached with our new Child Care Employer Innovation Fund, or employer-sponsored childcare, that we're doing in partnership with the Commonwealth Corporation, which is to bring partnerships between childcare and early education and care programs with employers and potentially with professional development organizations to really get businesses to the table about how to support their employees. We've had a lot of excitement and interest about this program, and I've heard from a lot of folks who have come in partnership with folks they haven't maybe worked with previously. Letters of expression for that pilot program were due on November 3rd. We have about $2.5 million to give out and probably 3 to 5 grants. So we are in the process of reviewing those with our partners, and we look forward to reporting back on that experience. Our next meeting will be December 10th, and we will be in Lynn, December 10th? Yeah, at the Lynn Opportunity Council, Economic Opportunity Council. So we're looking forward to being there with all of you. And that concludes my update, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're going to now move to the public comment portion of the meeting. I'd like to call up Suzanne Stillinger from New Village and Teach Plus. Suzanne, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Thank you, Chair Balsito, Commissioner Kershaw, and other members of the board. I want to start by first acknowledging the increasingly high-stakes environment in which public officials are now operating, and thank you for choosing this work. My name is Suzanne Stillinger. I use she and her. I'm a lead teacher and accessibility coordinator and co-director at New Village, which is a nonprofit collective of family childcare sites in Northampton. I'm also the facilitator for the Mass Defending the Early Years Working Group, the Early Childhood Education Advisor for Teach Plus, and a Senior Writing Fellow for Teach Plus as well. So I stay busy.
Yeah.
But I took the day off to come here today to talk about keeping our lenses wide about early literacy efforts in Massachusetts. I want to acknowledge all of the work and expertise that dedicated EEC employees and members of this board continue to bring to this critical issue, and humbly qualify my comments with, I know you get it. Please allow me to just pull at a few threads here of this complex issue. First, I want to lift up the work of the Children's Literacy Initiative and EEC's continuing collaboration with this fantastic organization as an ECSO. Their model of literacy instruction coaching through local mentorship is respectful of every teacher's expertise. It builds upon existing working relationships out in the field and is scalable in ways that honor the beauty of the broad scope of the mixed delivery system and the critical cultural competence contained within that model. Please keep that going. Widening that lens, I want to call attention to the fact that the demographic groups of children who are reading below grade level in Massachusetts are the same demographic groups of the 30,000 young children on the CCFA voucher waitlist. I know that EEC is committed to increasing access for all children, but especially for increasing voucher spots. We're certainly seeing efforts to increase capacity at existing sites, but that pathway is limited. There are clear limits on the ability of existing centers and existing family childcares to enroll more children. So we need to turn our eyes toward more novel workforce development. And I want to highlight my unique position in the field as a potential solution. It is so unique, in fact, that there isn't really a license for what I do. I'm a family childcare provider, but my family childcare is not in my home. My classroom was built as an addition onto the home of the grandparents of one of my students. And the housing market has changed dramatically since the FCC model was developed. I've been working full-time for 32 years. I've been a renter the whole time. I will likely never become a homeowner, in part because I've chosen a career in early childhood ed. I got my start at Casa Maria de Vasquez. I was a Head Start teacher for many years. And I can't afford to even rent the kind of place where I can have a family childcare. I'm able to make a living as an FCC despite not owning a home, and there is an untapped opportunity here to create classrooms for teachers like me within the Commonwealth, either by partnering with homeowners like the Empty Nesters that provided a place for my classroom, or to help create grants or 0% loans for a down payment on a home. I hope that all of us, those grants paired with at least a 25% voucher slot enrollment there and keeping the FCC open for 5 to 10 years. Sorry, I want to include that detail. I hope that all of us who care deeply about improving the lives of children and families en masse can continue to think creatively about how to wrap our arms around those who need high quality early literacy instruction and early childhood education and care the most. I'm grateful to be doing this work alongside all of you, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Suzanne. Suzanne, you are busy, and I'll just quote you and thank you for choosing this work.
Oh.
So thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
wearing a lot of hats, and I think the community benefits from that, so thank you. Anyone else here in the room for comment? All right, we'll move to some routine business. We have before us 2 sets of minutes for approval. First, we have revised minutes from the August meeting to reflect board attendance. Are there any additional corrections or edits to the August minutes? I would make a motion to approve the amended minutes of the August board meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Great, thank you. Next, we have before us the minutes of the October 15th board meeting. Are there any additional additions, corrections, or edits? Hearing and seeing none, I make the motion to approve the minutes of the October 15th, 2025 board meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Nikki, great. The minutes of the October 15th, 2025 board meeting are approved. Now we will move to our first agenda item on the strategic action plan.
Great. I'm going to invite Emily Connor-Simons to come up, and I am going to do an unusual thing and join her over there. Oh, you look nice from this angle.
View.
I'm really happy to be up here with Emily Connor-Simons and representing really the work of the entire agency as we have the opportunity to present to all of you a draft of our strategic action plan for for calendar year 2026 through 2030. As all of you are aware, we have a statutory mandate to create a 5-year strategic action plan to guide the work of the agency. We've been operating under a strategic action plan, which concludes at the end of December. And on time, we are presenting to you a draft of a strategic action plan that will carry us from January 1 through the end of 2030. I'm going to move to the strategic action plan slides. And we have had the opportunity to work really across every aspect of our field. We've been working with our advisory committees. We've been working with our staff in every division and across every section. We've been working with other state agencies, with our legislative colleagues, and with folks across the administration to develop a strategic action plan that is representative of both I would say the practical work ahead of us, as well as aspirational goals for where we would like to head. We did share a draft of the strategic action plan with each of you via email, and we welcome your feedback today during this presentation, as well as up until November 26th, that if there is additional feedback that you would like to share with us, we would welcome that. Our overall approach to this strategic action plan has really been about going deeper and further and executing on the work that we've started. I would say over the last 3 years, in partnership with this board and many across the Commonwealth, we have turned over nearly every rock at the agency and identified opportunities to strengthen, to improve, to modernize, to enhance, whether it's from regulations and policy all the way through hiring practices and culture at the agency. And this strategic action plan is really a practical representation of the work that we have been underway, that has been underway at the agency, as well as our goals for the next 5 years. We absolutely intend it to be a living and breathing document. We don't know what waits around the next corner, so the plan is really built to both execute on the things that we've started, to start the things that we've talked about but haven't had a chance to get underway, and then hopefully leave space and time for us to anticipate or respond to new and developing trends, directives from the legislature, priorities from the governor, or in partnership with our other state agencies. We've been working on this since spring of 2025, but it really goes back to the work this board's been doing over several years, and our partners in the community as well. We held a number of key stakeholder engagements, both direct and sort of joining other meetings or holding them directly ourselves, joining the 9:30 call, as well as our advisory, our workforce advisory and our advisory committee, both of which have a sort of statutory role in advising the agency around the strategic action plan. And we are here today with a draft we will present to you. We had an opportunity with board members at our September strategic planning retreat to kind of dig into some of the key strategic priorities and also the key initiatives that fall under those. And so you will see those represented both in today's presentation as well as in the draft plan. Our intention is to seek feedback from you between now and November 26th, and then we will send that plan out to get spiffed up a little bit and formatted, and then bring it back to you in December, where we anticipate asking for a vote to approve that so that it can be adopted in time for a January 1 start. We want to talk a little bit about what the foundations are for the strategic action plan, and then I'm going to turn it over to Emily to kind of walk a little bit through the process we've gone to, some of the foundational elements, and also some of the key goals and strategic priorities. This board and the team at EEC came up several years ago with 5 strategic objectives that cover really the majority of the work that's happening at the agency and have been durable in setting our strategic priorities, as well as how we organize our resources, how we organize our board and budget priorities, and how we organize our work. And they govern things like family access and ensuring families have equitable access to early education and care options, investing in our workforce as a key quality investment, as well as supporting the economic mobility of our workforce, investing in the quality of our programs and in the early education and after-school time programming that our children are receiving to support their school and life success. And then we've also really focused on program stability, primarily through the Commonwealth Cares for Children, or C3 program, but in other ways too, to recognize the importance of financial viability for our whole sector. And then the foundation on which all those 4 key strategic objectives sit is the capacity at the agency, which has been a major focus of our work over the last 3 or 4 years to really build data and research capacity, to build our capacity to work in partnership with families around information technology, and to make it easier to do business with the agency, both for our families and our providers, and to focus on the experience of our educators. And all of that takes infrastructure at the agency, and we've been building that, busy building that, and we have some goals to continue to do that going forward as well. So these strategic objectives undergird and really are the organizational structure for the strategic action plan and for the work we do every day, our organizational structure as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily to talk about a little bit how we formed this plan.
Lovely. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So as the Commissioner said, we, this year in particular, have done a fair amount of work since the spring to put this strategic action plan together, including some key outreach with some key external stakeholders to make sure that our goals and the projects we were talking about really felt aligned with their experiences. But that really targeted engagement this year really built on kind of a long history and breadth of engagement that EEC has engaged in over the last several years. So as some examples, the work that we've been doing with the task force and listening sessions, as the Commissioner mentioned, our various advisory councils that support the agency every day, as well as our wonderful stakeholder engagement opportunities that Eugenia Soilis and our team here run regularly to be really thinking about how we're bringing the community into the conversations and the policies that we're designing. So all of the work that happened this year is really built on kind of this foundation of work that's been happening over the last several years. Additionally, our plan is really deeply rooted in research. So that includes a lot of external research that has come out over the last several years that has been really key in sharing kind of foundational priorities and elements and perspectives on what early childhood systems should look like, including some of the ones on the screen here, as well as our own internal data and research capacity at the agency. So we've been really amping up our data and research teams with things like our KPI dashboard, which is our public dashboard of data and research over time, as well as many of our research priorities and briefs that we are releasing as an agency. So we're really thinking about how this data and research is informing the work that we're going to be doing over the next 5 years. And the last piece that I'll mention before we kind of jump into the content of the plan is that our work over the next 5 years is really going to be building off of the significant technological foundations that we've been laying over the last several months. So right now we are in progress on doing a lot of IT modernization at the agency, including our new CCFA family portal, improvements to our background record check system, the new educator portal and learning management system that we're in development of. So as we look over the next 5 years, making these new IT modernization projects a reality is really what the work is going to look like. So before I jump into the specific goals for the next 5 years, which we're excited to get your feedback on, I just want to give a little bit of framing on what the structure of the report is going to be. As the commissioner mentioned, we're using those 5 strategic objectives to really organize the report. So there will be a section of the report that is on family access, there will be a section on program stability, a section on workforce supports, et cetera. And within each of those sections, we'll have a description of kind of what that work looks like, what the work is that's currently happening at the agency within that area, some recent milestones and accomplishments that we want to celebrate, the progress that we've made, as well as some specific 5-year goals for the next 5 years of what we want to see, and some metrics that we want to track to help us measure progress towards those goals over the next 5 years. So right now I'm going to walk us through kind of the 5-year goals for the next 5 years. I'm going to go through all of them, but and then have some time afterwards for feedback, but if folks have any questions or concerns as we go, feel free to interrupt.
I just want to mention too that in the metrics section, because we thought a lot about this, because it's important sort of both current and developmentally for us as an agency. So what you'll see in the plan is that we have metrics that we currently have and can track, and then we have some aspirational metrics that we'd like to be able to develop. And we had an opportunity to meet with our Data Advisory Commission, which is a new commission, supporting and advising the agency to help us kind of frame up. So you will see in it that there are ones that we are currently tracking and have access to and measuring, and ones that we hope to be able to track over the period of the strategic action plan.
Lovely, thank you. All right, so I'm going to get us started with our family access goals. So we have 4 family access goals for the next 5 years. And what you'll see is these goals are really based around expanding affordability and helping more families access the programs and resources that they need. And so these goals and these areas of work will involve things like developing our new family portal, which is going to be a streamlined CCFA application and enrollment process for our families, ongoing work on our C3 and CPPI grant programs, as well as initiatives like trying to make our childcare search a little bit more user-friendly so that it is more helpful for families as they're navigating the variety of options that are available to them. So we're excited about these goals in the family access space over the next 5 years.
Can I just
Yes,
add,
please.
in service of using hope, because I know how hard the team is working, but all of these are big goals and strategies, but I know we'll hear later when we talk about CCFA and my sense is this will be a big one over the next couple of years, right? We just think about how a lot of the things that this team is doing is working, and more children are engaging with the department, and wait lists are growing, and there's going to be a real interesting dialogue, I think, over the next couple of years as it relates to access in particular. So I know how hard you guys are thinking about this, and it stands front and center on the plan here too, to get after it. And so I just wanted to name that because
It's in red.
Yeah, it's in red, like, I got it. But obviously, I think the access question will be something that we'll talk about and obviously are interwoven in between the other strategic pillars as well. But, you know, the hope I'm bringing to it is I know how hard people are thinking and working about this, on this. So just wanted to amplify it a little bit as we move forward in the conversation.
I think it's what's on people's mind.
Yeah.
Top of people's mind as well, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on access? Want to do it that way?
I just want to uplift, like, for number 4, and I love all of these, that, like, families who need assistance paying for early education and childcare will have centralized access to the information they need. And kind of baked into this, just to uplift this, is an assumption that families will be able to know easily and quickly if they're eligible, right? And so that's kind of an assumption baked into that I want to uplift, and I admire that as part of this goal.
Not only will they be able to know if they're eligible, but, you know, our current wait list system, we've talked about several times, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, is not ideal for providers or for families. So there's not a lot of visibility. How long am I going to wait? Or for providers, they're often getting outdated information from that wait list. So having an updated system will not only help families know where they stand and where they might, when they might be able to access care, but it's also going to expedite the process for our providers who are trying to manage enrollment and keep their programs as full as possible, both to reach as many families as they can, but also to support their own financial viability. So embedded in all of this, and obviously we have these 4 big goals, but when you look at that actual document itself, each of them has multiple projects and initiatives under, you know, between 5 and 12 under each of the 4. So they're sort of grouped in this organizational structure, but getting to, you know, families who need assistance paying will have centralized access, you know, has 10 different projects that are going to lead us hopefully down that path.
Okay. To the commissioner's point about supporting providers and programs to keep their programs open and full, our next strategic objective is our program stability area, where we have 3 goals that are really around this improvement of program stability and financial sustainability, so that they can open and they can stay open. So within program stability, we're going to be continuing a lot of the great work that has begun already, including a lot of our business and administration supports for program leaders, including through our collaborations with the Business Front Door. Continuing to develop the capital grant strategy that the commissioner mentioned earlier to help more programs access resources to improve and upgrade their facilities so that we have strong facilities in our programs. And also things like pursuing additional partnerships between public and private entities to figure out other ways that we can be bringing financial resources and supports into our systems to support programs. Any
questions, comments on this? Great, thanks, Emily.
Yeah. Our next area is our program quality goals, which, as the commissioner mentioned, is really around supporting children's safety and healthy development to get them ready for school and life. And so within program quality, the kind of biggest area of work that we've begun and will continue doing over the next few years is really updating all of our licensing regulations for programs. So we'll hear later today from our residential program team about the residential reg updates that are in process. And after that, we will be moving to our other program types as well. So really focusing on updating our licensing regs as a way to improve safety and quality within our programs. And aligned with that, continuing and improving and increasing our technical assistance and support for programs, so coaching and professional development to help programs understand and continue to grow their capacity to provide high-quality spaces. Any
Questions or comments on program quality?
Just reiterating sort of something Emily was saying too, which is that the licensing regulations, whether in our residential or family child care or our group and school age programs, are really the foundation on which all of the rest of our quality investments stand. So ensuring the health and safety and the expectations, the ratios of what's happening in the program. So starting with those, as well as the intersection between our investments in the workforce, which is really also part of our theory of quality.
One thing I'll say is I appreciate the trajectory that we are already on in terms of looking toward innovative ways of approaching different quality investments. So thinking about, as I read, leadership and system staff to be supported in planning and organizing program level professional learning and on-the-job supports, right? I'm thinking about the apprenticeship work that has already been begun. I'm thinking about the emerging understanding of the effectiveness of mentors and what that looks like in-house for both new folks, but also for mentors. And so I'm looking forward to continued innovation and looking to the field to what works, and especially in these areas where the field knows best what works and what is of high quality and how we can scale and adopt those things writ large.
Thank you. All right. As the commissioner said, our program quality goals are inextricably linked with our workforce support goals because they really are around professional learning and development.
This has been weaved together very nicely. It's kind of
beautiful. It's a tapestry.
Yeah.
So our workforce supports goals are, again, really around improving retention and advancement and support for our early educator, and childcare workforce. And so, again, there's many kind of elements of work that go into this, but a few of the things that we're thinking about is the launch of our new educator credentialing system, which will replace our current educator certificates and sort of have many pathways for educators throughout the field, as well as our new educator portal, which will support educators navigate that new credential system. Also thinking about developments like our new learning management system, which is going to host asynchronous professional development for educators to be able to access training and supports online. As others have mentioned, continuing to support and grow our apprenticeship models and professional development pathways and the other ways that we're bringing more people into the field and into the workforce. Any questions on our workforce support goals for the next 5 years? Okay, then I will move us to our last slide for this section, which is around our agency infrastructure. So again, thinking about our internal capacity, including the staffing, systems, and structures that really enable EEC to do its work well. And so we are thinking a lot in this area around our data system, so continuing to improve and grow our data and research teams and our kind of systems for collecting high-quality data and sharing that publicly. Thinking a lot about our continuing to build and develop our stakeholder engagement work and making sure that the work that we're doing is very intentionally, contributed to by folks in the field and built on what we're hearing from folks in the field, as well as some of the technology systems that we've mentioned so far. So our educator portal, our family portal, our learning management system, in addition to those being useful tools for our staff and for our families and for our programs, they will also help us as an agency organize and manage the work that we're doing more efficiently and more effectively so that we're better supporting those in the field.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, any questions or comments?
I would just add, thank you. I mean, I think just starting, I'm thinking about where you started, Commissioner, on like turning every stone, right? Like, and first of all, it takes an infrastructure to do that. And I do feel like this is, my response to this is like, in the next 4 years, a lot of the stones that have been turned over are gonna prove themselves out. Like, it really is a life cycle of the work that has already been underway and kind of been rolling here for a little bit. We've seen some of those pilots work and some other things, but some of these infrastructure IT, like we're gonna start to learn, this is gonna start to move at a different pace once we have data and information from these upgrades and modernization that is really gonna hit this year, never mind leaving room for all the unknowns, right? And I'm even thinking about AI infrastructure in the way, agency infrastructure in the way AI may come into some of like the business work you do, not just but like are there ways that AI can help with the wait list or looking at license? I don't know, but like there's gonna be things down the road here that will just continue to change the way that every organization operates, not just this one. And I just think we are all well poised to be able to embrace those opportunities versus trying to catch up to those opportunities because of the foundation that's been laid here. And I'll just add one more piece on the infrastructure because I think this is a piece that people miss sometimes. It takes people to do all this work, and I can only share from my experience being on this board for the last couple of years, like the mindset shift, the way that people are thinking, the agility, it just comes through, and it continues to come through in this process as well, from my perspective. leaving room for the unknown, right? Like you can kind of get stuck and say like, that's not part of our plan, but like if part of the plan is that we are going to encounter some things that we don't know, like you're ready for it, right? And so just grateful for the mindset that the team has built over the last couple of years under your leadership, Commissioner, to really be poised, I think, to see some really remarkable things come to fruition over the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Just to build off of that, I think especially as I look at these infrastructure goals, which I think are great and a little ambitious, they're not all goals that the agency itself can fulfill by itself, right? And I'm thankful that we have an interagency task force that is already paying attention to some of the things that just are beyond EEC's control. And particularly as I'm thinking about things like marching forward into a much more digital space. And you all have heard this, so I apologize for saying it again, but just on the record, right? We need to bring our field along with us as we walk into a more digital space. And this is going to be great, but also we can't leave anyone behind. And so this is something that I don't know that EEC itself alone can tackle. And I would really value bringing in anybody else through the interagency task force, but also beyond, right, beyond government, who would be interested in supporting what that looks like and how we are sure to bring both our providers, our families, all of the folks in the ecosystem who need to be brought along. So I'm excited for these ambitious goals, and like to your point, I'm really hopeful that like we have the structures in place and we activate them in the next couple of years.
I guess I would just say that I think that's true of all 5 of the goals, right? We've set out a number of ambitious goals that 0 of which we can accomplish by ourselves. So whether it's in formal partnership with our higher education institutions, either as preparers of the workforce or research partners, or it's in partnership with our formal workforce system so that our Mass Higher Career Centers are working closely with our apprenticeship programs, or our Executive Office of Technology Services. Like they're about to distribute 27,000 new devices, and we were like, family child care first. So all of this is sort of predicated on the idea that none of it can be done alone, and it certainly can't be done by EEC by itself. So it's in partnership with the leadership in the field as well as across state government. And then in partnership with businesses and employers across the state too. So I think to bring the transformation we want to see happen in the early education and care system, and that I think we're on the path towards, we're going to need everyone. We also need the federal government to come back and do their job as well. But federal, state, municipalities, as well as school districts, and then all parts of state government, sort of rowing towards. I mean, we envision a system, and it's embedded here. And I think the plan itself and even these slides are really sort of tactical and concrete, but they reflect kind of the vision we have for a truly human-centered system that puts children and families, that gives educators a true professional pathway and economic mobility in their chosen field, that families really do have access to the choices that make the most sense for their families and meet the needs of their children, both sort of from a schedule standpoint, but also from an educational standpoint. And we envision, a thriving sector where programs are not having to choose between whether they're going to do a pay raise to their staff or they're going to participate in a food program or buy supplies for classrooms. So we are on the path to that. And, again, I think the plan reads very tactically, and that is intentional because it's the work we've had underway. But we've talked many times with all of you about the fact that you have to press multiple levers in the current system. In childcare, we have a market-based system right now. So to try and bring the kind of investments and access for families and stability for programs, we need to make sure we're providing capital investments to programs. We're providing direct support financially to programs so they can pay their staff and make quality investments and have stable, predictable businesses for the families they're serving and the educators who work there. And we need to make sure that families have increased power to pay in the market, right, as costs also continue to go up. So if you look across the sort of 5 structures and the embedded strategies that are below them, they envision us continuing to simultaneously push all of those levers to try and create that system. So we have a long way to go to reach the families. We're going to talk about childcare financial assistance, and we're going to talk about our residential programs too. We have a long way to go to make the investments we need to support that workforce and the needs of those children and families. But I really believe strongly, and this has a lot to do with the incredible talent of the team at EEC, that we are building the system that we want to have, and that as new investments come, we'll be well positioned to take advantage of them efficiently and effectively with modern technology, and with dignity and respect for the children and families and educators who kind of rely on our system. So I'm excited to share this plan with you, even though, as I said, I think it reads fairly practically in its approach, but embedded in that is this broader view.
And I'll just add, part of it is you're operating, to me, in a collective impact model where you are listening to lots of people, right? It's not a government pushed out, like it is being fed by people like Suzanne, who can come here today and share. I wrote down the empty nester strat. I'm like, maybe that's a thing. Like maybe that, like it is being fed by people in the field. And we've said this with C3 data in particular around, we ask a lot of the field for information, but I hope people can see that like the information's being used on the regular, right? To kind of inform this stuff. It's not just information for information. Like it is helping to guide policy and strategy and pilots and other things. And that's what's exciting about, I think, the moment right now is it is being fed from a lot of those different stakeholder groups. So, okay.
Apologize in advance if this doesn't come out straight, but one of the things that, as I looked at the board package, made me think about this future plan to 2030 is, you know, it's Massachusetts, 351 cities and towns, patchwork of diverse delivery systems galore, right? Almost everything we do in the Commonwealth looks like that. And there are huge pros. The challenge, I'm not going to call it a con, but the challenge is to figure out how to find the throughput or find the clarity through that. And so a little vulnerable risk here, putting out like kind of a big, hairy idea, but you know, does the whole plan even get wrapped through an aspirational goal of, you know, by 2030, we want to see 75,000 families in care. I'm making that number up and it's, you know, what is the aspirational number? But if you start to look at the data of average caseloads in all the things, like all the patchwork, you know, and there's a lot of context, politics, funding, capacity, everything you said, Amy, going into that is you have to do it all to actually grow capacity. But if you wrap all the process goals together around access, professional development, workforce, all the pieces, it's like that throughput line of where do we know we're starting to make progress on that, even though there are going to be things that maybe take you off that track. So I guess for the board, I wonder, do we think a little bit about, or as part of the conversation coming from this meeting, do we think, even if it isn't written into the plan, because I know how challenging that is at the state level, but is that something that becomes kind of a way to think about that North Star? Because if you don't do all the other things, agency infrastructure, workforce development, funding, policy, quality, you don't get there either, right? So it's food for thought. It's not a question. It wasn't a request. It was just as I looked across the breadth of information in the board deck and thought a little bit about what do I want to tell people in 2030? You know, where are we trying to go? That's kind of what emerged. Again, a little bit of a risk and putting that out there.
No, thanks for sharing.
So,
yeah, I was thinking about something really similar, and I don't even know if we have a baseline, because as you say, it's such a broad system with so many different pieces. Like I would even include paid parental leave, right? Like that gives access to care, right? Like it's not, you know, it's not kind of the traditional childcare market, but like that is a piece of it, right? And so I would be really interested to, at some point, not here and now, but to kind of like figure out what is our baseline, where are we now in the Commonwealth in terms of how many children are being cared for across the Commonwealth through free or subsidized care. And then could we set some kind of a, you know, aspirational, you know, goal for like, well, what should it be? Because I think that right now what we have, and we'll cover this when we, you know, talk about the you know, the CCFA updates, we know like what percentage of kids are covered through
Right.
income eligible, you know, but there's so many other pieces, you know, there's Head Start, there's UPK, there's, you know, and so like there's all these different pieces that cover kids across the state and make that number much bigger than
Exactly.
it would be,
Yeah.
otherwise.
And this is the question on most family minds: affordability and access to quality care. So
Yeah, and I think
it's like
that the-
looking at that spectrum.
Yeah, and the danger that we have is like all that people see in the news is Massachusetts is the most expensive. That's all that's kind of on anybody's mind. And so, but if we could sort of start to counter that with like, yes, and, you know, X percent of families in the Commonwealth have access to some kind of subsidy or get free care or whatever it is, just to kind of counteract the I mean, the narrative is going to be there regardless, but to sort of make a statement about what it is that we've done.
I mean, I think linking both of your thoughts together, it's true. There are children who are getting served through our funding and our programs. There are many children, 11,000, getting served through Head Start right now. Local school districts are providing early education and care services, and families are also investing heavily, you know, some who can afford it and some who cannot. And so in our world, I think it's much more about understanding where's the, you said throughput, but sort of where are the right levers or the holes or the gaps that we need to fill that can kind of take advantage of the investments that are there,
Yeah.
while making sure there's a more even experience for families in terms of being able to afford the care that makes sense for them, and a more even experience for the educational experience for the children. The other thing I just wanted to say is that we, as ambitious as I think we have been here in terms of what we want to accomplish, it is heavily sort of process and sort of what the system does, because we also sort of kept it in the sort of measurable control kind of
Absolutely.
zone, right? What are the things we can change right now, you know, and within the resources that we've been appropriated, and we'll spend time for the rest of the day talking about that as well. And you'll see that in our residential reg presentation, you know, sort of what is the most ambitious we could be in our residential regulations within the resources that are available within our system, and what is the most ambitious we can be in terms of building the infrastructure, making sure families can access information and prepare for greater investments when and if they're available to build in. So
I'll just add, I am hopeful we can get somewhere closer to what you articulated. And I do think some of the work here around like even the IT modernization for us to better understand the data and the information, like right now it still feels a little like, so in order to make that like, maybe it's not aspirational, maybe it's like a true projection, right? Like based off really high quality data that everybody trusts, that respectfully, I don't know if we're quite there yet, just because systems aren't talking and we're upgrading and we're doing new portals. But like, I think that's what could allow us to start setting those North Stars a little bit more like clear, backed
And-
up too.
Especially once we're not talking to ourselves anymore on
Yeah.
the public side only. If you want to get business to engage into a scalable conversation, like I love ComCore, you know that, old partner. The pilot conversation, to get that to a bigger level of dialogue, the business community is going to say, well, what are you trying to do? Like, how far are you trying to go? You know, how many more? And it's just not an easy definition. Nothing good is easy, right? But the ability to use the plan and to think about what 2030 looks like in terms of vision of, you know, we believe the demand for subsidized care or not subsidized care, or, you know, universal pre-K, like figuring out those component pieces. And so we're trying to get to here in that conversation. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but as part of that process, could be a really good thing to do, especially as we're looking to bring in other kinds of funders.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions before we tie this up? Great, thank you. Thank you.
great. All right, so we will bring back the final draft for the board's consideration in December for approval and adoption, and then it will continue to be our guidepost and our blueprint, while providing opportunities for revisiting both with the board and with other stakeholders as the landscape will continually change, no doubt. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to Emily, who's done an amazing job organizing the brilliant minds at EEC and of our partners into this plan.
Nicely done, Emily.
Thank you.
All right, we'll bring up Joe, Tim, Kelly, Susan, Miguel.
Definitely going to move back here for this one while our residential team settles in.
Home stretch. Nice to see you all again.
Yes.
Nice to be seen.
So as the board knows, for at least two, and several of the members on the panel will say much longer, we have been actively engaged in revising the regulations that govern our residential and group home programs. We have been to the board several times to give you background on what the residential programs do, to give you an overview of the regulations, to share our strategy for the revision process and how we were going to approach engagement. And we are at a really exciting milestone today that I am thrilled that this team is here to present on where we are in the residential regulations, update you on the key changes that we are proposing, and then seek your support for us to go for public comment. So I'm going to stop there because the team has prepared a really good presentation that I think will be inclusive of everything the board needs to hear. So, Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you would each introduce yourselves to make sure the board members know who you are and what role you play.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Joe Rucker, Deputy Commissioner of Field Operations. I'm responsible for the licensing and also for child care and for residential and also for investigations.
Tim Keene, Director of Residential and Placement Services here at EEC.
Kelly Buckley, Supervisor for the Residential and Placement Unit.
Miguel Ortega, I'm the newest supervisor, but I've been in the unit for 27 years though, so I'm not new.
You're not new.
New role.
Yeah, new role.
And I'm Susan Hatchie. I've been the project manager.
Great. Good to see you all.
All right. So thank you. So as Chair said earlier, we're thinking about the work. We think about it as a modernization of a framework. It's a way to really look at a concept that's you're going to hear about is woven into the presentation. It's a way to look at the work about updating it, making sure it's current, and it's hopefully a goal to create a more efficient process for children and families to have good outcomes. So as you look here at this first slide, EEC is responsible for licensing residential and placement agencies that serve thousands of children. Many of these children have complex needs, trauma, behavioral health, or developmental disabilities. The left side, the group care, that's we have about a 5,200 license capacity, about 311 programs. That area is for the long term where kids stay there longer than 45 days. The right side is more of a short-term stabilization. Clinical services are specific with hopes that they go on to home. If they're not able to maintain and stabilize, be successful there, then they'll go into the group care process. Next slide. So our state agency involvement. As you know,
We are
this.
mastering the interagency government work here. This
Oh yeah,
is,
you'll hear it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The commission wanted us to be aspirational, and we did that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Residential care is interdependent. Children in these programs are often involved with multiple systems simultaneously. For example, a child could be referred through DCF, that's the Child Welfare System, into one of the programs that's licensed by EEC. They'll go to school in a DESE that oversees their educational process, and they can also receive mental health services for DMH. So that shows the complexity that underscores the alignment across agencies, and that's why it's central to these revisions. We wanted to make sure we clarified expectation, not having reducing duplication, and creating a more seamless experience for children and families, and staff as well. Next slide. So here, as the commissioner said, it's been 30 years. We had an update in 2015 around regarding the prone, the mechanical, and the chemical restraint. This area, these goals reflect both operational needs and values. This is where new requirements were added. They're grounded in evidence-based best practices with which attention to things that didn't impact cost on the providers. And more importantly, the children and families are at the center. The revisions are about improving their lived experience in residential programs. A part that's important to the skilled workforce, we understood, heard it from the community that this area is very stressed. There's a lot. It's hard to get them through the door, onboarding, and we didn't want to be adding things that made it more difficult. So we'll hear a little bit more about some of the things that we're adding, which is really intentional to help strengthen what's happening. So this next part, strong regulations must not only be clear but enforceable, ensuring accountability across programs. The lenses that we looked at, for example, permanency, we're thinking of that in this environment, that it's safe, stable, lasting, living situation. When we're thinking about trauma-informed and responsive care, ensuring that the practices of the program are structured to recognize the widespread impact of trauma, and it actively addresses its effects on the children that are living there. And then when we're thinking about the racial, linguistic, cultural equity, creating a system where a child's care is respected and acknowledges their identity. Next slide. So the engagement work, it's been a long process. It's happened for a number of years, but engagement has been a cornerstone to this process, and we didn't want to write regulations in isolation. The engagement methods were very diverse. The goals included ensuring clarity so programs could realistically implement changes without any unintended consequences. Collaboration with state partners, the providers, advocates created opportunities to problem solve. And this inclusive approach is building not just better regulations, but stronger partnerships going forward. So you could see that we've done surveys, speaking to the licensing team, investigation team, visiting programs. You'll hear more about our work group that's been very active, and we are committed to keeping that going through when we're rolling out policies, to hear from them who are actually working with the program. So next slide. So thank you to our partners. So we have met with our team, it's about 20 or so. We started in the summer and been going deep into the key areas of reform. Very active group, really engaged and gave us a lot of feedback throughout the process. We also did the state agencies. So we actually detailed the review of the drafts and providing feedback on how to align, and they gave us a lot of great feedback. We worked with, of course, EOE, DESE, and through EHS, we did Department of Youth Services, DCF, DPH, DMH, the OCA, Office for Child Advocate, and DPPC. And just to highlight too, so the working group has really been great. Eugenia has helped us, guided us, kept us afloat on making sure that that has been effective, and it's really useful. So people are looking forward to what's happened, but also what's to come. And to shed light, I know Tim and Kelly, they are the SMEs, the subject matter experts. They've been doing this for a long time with Miguel and Susan, who has the brains of it all. So it's been, and the licensors as well. It's been a great journey to learn through them this whole process. So I'll hand it over to Tim.
I just want to add my thanks to the partners, and I see many of them out in the community, and I think there's been a really strong mutual benefit to this working group. I think they've been very happy to be engaged in a very high quality process, of course, run by our incredibly talented Eugenia Soilis. But I also want to say that they made our revisions better, stronger, more responsive. Places where we maybe had gone too far, they were like, we're not ready for that. Or places where we didn't go far enough, they said, come on, it's time for you to catch up. So they, across the board, made them better and stronger, and so much so that they kept themselves employed. So we've asked them to stay on, as Joe said. So as we think about implementation, training, and policy development, we are not going to let them go, because we need them to help us make those better and stronger as well. So I just wanted to offer my gratitude to our working group and also to our state agency partners who really meaningfully engaged in their feedback on the residential regulations, which I think really reflects kind of the stake all the public agencies have in continuing to support and improve this system. So, thanks. Tim?
Great. Okay, so the key areas of focus. So the following highlights the key area of focus which set the foundation of our regulation revision. The tone and text of the entire document needed an overhaul to reflect cultural standards for 2025 and hopefully beyond. We better align sections of the regs to create a more accessible, clear, and consistent document. The areas of focus help frame our conversations that we had with the external work groups, trades, and other state agencies. So now we can categorize these areas of focus into 3 areas of reform. The first area encompasses a document that promotes inclusivity, modern expectations, and alignment with other state agencies. Definitions were also updated, as well as a non-discrimination section, which now aligns with DESE and other state agencies. The second area is to reflect supporting children and staff through permanency planning and trauma with an informed lens. And last area creates more accountability, clarity of compliance expectations while promoting transparency. So the next few slides will show examples of each of the areas of reform. So language, inclusivity, and alignment. Language moved from an antiquated terminology such as male, female to current gender-neutral supportive language to enhance inclusivity. We've replaced the use of resident to child, which is defined as any person 18 or younger than 22 if that person has a disability. We also changed teen parent to young parent, which now aligns better with DCF, which is also any person under the age of 13. Another significant area of...
Under young parent?
Yes, young parent. It went from teen parent to young parent, which is any person 13 and older, now aligning with DCF. Yes, thank you. That would be a little troublesome.
Is that
Yeah.
where you're going?
That's not aligned.
Thank you. I need stronger glasses, sorry, yes. And a significant area of alignment involving the use of seclusion is now in line with DESE's recent regulation changes that they had. Okay. So permanency, best practice, trauma-informed, and responsive care. Establish permanency planning as guiding principles for all placements. Incorporates requirements for training to include trauma-informed care, working with LGBTQIA+ children, cultural responsiveness, sexual abuse and exploitation, and missing and absent children. We added a focus on staff development, training, and retention. And we also added consideration for linguistic equity so that programs could share consents, program descriptions, and any other materials in preferred language of the children and/or their families. Accountability, transparency, and clarity. We updated language to reflect background record checks and suitability terms. Board inclusion, we created requirements to programs need to have someone on their board that has now direct experience with the population of the kids that they're serving. And we also are now requiring that annual reports that programs do need to be submitted to the board, and it needs to have certain data as required by EEC. An example of that would be restraint data. The use of surveillance cameras. Programs are now going to be required to submit any policy or procedure that they have as it relates to using cameras for EEC's review and approval. And now there's also a caveat that if someone is really struggling with supervision or issues within their program, that EEC would then engage in a conversation with the program about their need for cameras. I think the good news is we found that a lot of our programs are already using some form of surveillance cameras within, but this will allow for our ability, now that it's in regulation, to require such use if needed. We did some clarification around required notifications, as well as the shift-to-shift communication between staff and administration, otherwise known as the communication log, that programs and EEC are familiar with, and we developed more criteria within the reg. I would say throughout the years, every program had their own way of doing it, and then we created a technical assistant document to help programs and to help EEC be able to, evaluate across the board. And we really took those from like best practices that programs were already utilizing. So not so much brand new, but now putting it in the reg and having that available to staff as a TA document.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
So here we are, upcoming project milestones. We're now shifting gears internally. Our policy folks have been engaged with us throughout the process, which is fantastic. They've been able to be part of the provider work groups and hear not only the thought process behind the development of the regulations, but flag for us places where it might make sense to have policy and or procedure or guidance. So thankfully, we're not starting brand new, but there's definitely a focus right now to fully engage with our policy folks moving forward. As you can see, the goal would be to work on all of that so that we would have a tight and concrete set of procedures, policies, guidance, inclusive of training, available to folks prior to the actual promulgation and actual implementation of the regs, not the promulgation. We would also now be engaging with our lead and IT team. Thankfully, they raised their hand and said, don't forget about us, because we did, as folks here, R&P, there's a placement set of regulations that we did do more recently than 30 years. It's been within 5 to 8 years, I think. And we did find during that period of time that we got the regulations through, everything was fine, but then we realized we hadn't really adjusted our lead database yet. So when we went out to find a citation, it wasn't aligning directly at that time, so we really needed to do a lot of work. So thankfully, we flagged folks early and often enough to help us with these different types of avenues of work that are directly impacted by us deciding to try and change regulation and get you guys to approve that. So we're going to be working with them very extensively soon to figure out what that need will be and make sure that we've got that met before the regulations are set. As far as documentation revision and public comment, as we sit now, we believe that we've made all the additional changes that we could make. We thought we would be here a month ago, but honestly, thankfully, I think we got a really robust amount of feedback from the provider community prior to that, but also our stakeholders. Can't thank them enough for the feedback that we received from them. It was very important. Thankfully, we were able to do that now so that the public is going to see all of the feedback that we've been able to kind of come up with. We definitely expect meaningful feedback from the public still. And again, to reiterate for folks, either providers and or state stakeholders, there's still that opportunity to let us know whether we got that right. Sorry, just really quickly, as far as external engagement, not to just double down on what the commissioner mentioned, but she is definitely holding our provider community and our workforce, our task force together for this next policy section. And by all accounts, they're on board. Again, I think thanks to Eugenia's ability to present and keep people engaged, it's been very helpful. So do appreciate that. So here's our path. We're here today presenting to the board for a vote, hopefully to get us to a place where we can go out to public comment. Given that we were off by a bit, we've moved out the time frame. I think there's been a real intention to make sure there is ample amount of time for people to have this feedback. So we know that we could have adjusted our time frame and just said, okay, now we're just going to go out for public time in a quicker period. But there's just so much here that's being changed, and it's been so long since it's been changed. We do want to make sure people have ample time to review what has been suggested. And also for our provider community, the document itself has really been revised in a lot of different ways to hopefully read better for folks. We got it. Our provider community got it. They could tell you where the 3 different references to fire emergencies is within the regulations, but it was a bit of a quiz for folks to try and figure out, oh, why is that over here as well? So our legal team really helped us pull that stuff together. So hopefully it is a little more readable for folks. But giving ample time, hopefully through January, starting in February, EEC will review comments as we receive them, but also really lock in February to April with our review, the board's review around those comments in hopes of coming back in April for a vote. And then from there on, the deployment of new policies, procedures to the field, again, inclusive of training. This is something we have not really had a strong set of policy behind. The commissioner has mentioned in past presentations how our licensors have been in negotiations with providers oftentimes. hopefully that will alleviate some of this, because we hope to present them a playbook, but also our team a playbook to say, what do you need for training to make sure these regs are clear to you and the providers, so we're working collaboratively towards a good foundation.
I'll just step in for a minute to thank the team. And the whole entire residential team, our investigators, licensing team, our regional directors, our policy folks, our research and data folks, that really has been an all hands on deck, all agency effort. And that's what it takes to get this level of change to happen after this long. I am really proud of the work that this team has done and in presenting these regulations to all of you. They reflect not only a really critical modernization and update, but they also reflect our clear expectations and values about what we want for our residential programs. And they give our licensors as well as programs greater clarity. Joe, what did you say? They need to be clear and enforceable. And I also want to say that we have a lot of work to do within our residential programs to support the workforce, to support children and families to have access to the care that they need. And these regulations lay a really critical and important foundation in that system. And bringing about transformation there will also require continued engagement with our other state agency partners who have such an important role in the experience of children and families, and also for the workforce. So we look forward to putting these in place and also continuing that collaborative work. But I want to recognize Joe and Tim for his leadership. New role in the agency we haven't had in a long time, Director of Residential, and we couldn't have made a better choice. And you have such an incredible team in Miguel and Kelly. So we're really grateful for your leadership, and we know you're going to see these through this implementation process in a way that's in the best interest of our programs and our staff, as well as the children and families who will be served. So thank you for your exceptional work.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
support.
Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Questions, comments from the board? Carolyn?
Just a comment. I greatly appreciate the amount of work that was undertaken to get this done. I mean, for something to not have been reviewed or revised in 30 years is an incredible. I was like, oh my God, that's the year after I got married, and I've been married for over 30 years. So I was like, and I've been on the board for a long time. I'm like, this was desperately needed. And I do think that in the long run, it's gonna help to support the programs and also support the care of the children in those programs. So thank you to the entire team for this incredible effort, and good job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Nikki?
I'll echo that, thanks. And I just have a quick question. I know that sort of early on you said that you wanted to center the lived experience of children in this process. And so I just wanted to ask the question. It sounds like you did a wonderful, the provider community was really central to all of this, but was just wondering if there was a way that either children who are currently in the system or people who have sort of aged out of the system were engaged in the process as well.
I'll let Tim go.
Sure. Aged out is a great question. Children in the, just to share with you the process for us, which I think is unique from other folks, is part of our licensing process is to be able to interview and engage the youth that are in programs.
Great.
So we definitely have had that. That's led to a lot of good feedback for us to know that experience. I think we've definitely relied upon, again, as you saw, all of the people that are in our world and we're in their world. We try to collaborate with them around having that communication flow through their natural channels. We've had the OCAs gone out and visited, most recently, and interviewed kids within our programs, and also have had access themselves. So it's not just the regulatory kind of question and answers that we've had for residents internally. We've tried to lean on our other partners who have much more direct communication in a different way with our provider, the folks that are receiving our services, the children and the families in those events.
Great. It's great to hear.
We'd also encourage participation in the public comment period by families who have children enrolled in programs or by the youth.
Hey, can I just ask, you've done a lot of engagement here, so now we're entering this, potentially after this vote, entering a new phase. Like, what is the public comment period? Like, what ways will people have an opportunity to kind of engage and share their views in the process?
So Eugenia is going to drive that bus for us, but we're going to have we're going to have a Zoom platform, right, as well as possible, in person.
We'll have a public hearing and then folks can also submit comments to us online. After the board takes action to vote, all
Yeah.
of that will be publicly available and we'll be sending that out to folks so they know how to participate.
Great.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Well,
Just a quick
yeah.
thank you to Erica and the legal team that I mean, they were involved very extensively, but the last kind of month with having all that feedback was quite the haul. So they really updated the regulations in a meaningful way for us. So didn't want to leave legal out of that. Out of that
Oversight. So you-
gratitude.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
You may have.
We would not be here without our.
No one
legal
likes
team.
lawyers until they need one.
I love lawyers.
I say
for
that
the
as
record.
being one.
I love lawyers, so this was an unusual oversight. So.
Joe flagged it.
Thank you.
Joe.
Good stuff. Now, amplifying, just thanks to all of you and to the partners and to those that, feel like they want to contribute to this process that weren't able through the many opportunities it sounds like you all facilitated. After this vote, hopefully there's the chance to, again, get more feedback for you to digest and make sure that we are building a modern policy here that reflects the dignity, respect, and care that we have for children, families, our workforce as well. And so, thank you. With that, I would make the motion that the Board of Early Education and Care, in accordance with General Law, Chapter 15D, Section 3, hereby approves the draft amended regulations governing residential programs and authorizes the Commissioner of Early Education and Care to file the amended regulations with the Secretary of the Commonwealth for publication of a notice of public comment in the Massachusetts Register, consistent with the department's proposed policy directions and subject to the approval of the final regulations after a public comment period by the board. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
One abstention.
Great. Thank you all. Can't wait to see what the public comment looks like. We'll plan on seeing you back here around April. Great.
All done.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Shooting for.
With that, we'll take a couple-minute break. back. We have our last agenda item. I will just have the commissioner introduce it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm really pleased to welcome up our CFO, Eric Hansen, our Deputy Commissioner for Family Access, Tyrese Nicholas, and our Director of Research, Ashley White, to help share an update on childcare financial assistance. So one of the most frequently requested items by this board is an update on what's happening in our childcare financial assistance programs. And we regularly update you on sort of the number of kids that are being served, expenditures, and sort of trends. Today we're going to go a little bit deeper. So I've asked the team to put together sort of a little bit more detail about some of the factors and dynamics within the caseload, how things look in trends over time, how some of the impacts of the investments that we've made in both enrolling new children and also increasing rates paid, as well as our recent reprocurement after 15 years. There's a theme today of things that needed to be updated that we've gotten to. So there are a number of dynamics that have contributed to sort of where we are today in childcare financial assistance. And as most of you are aware, we are still holding limits within our income eligible program, which means access to vouchers is extremely limited, both for providers and for families, causing strain for families. And we hear, and our legislators hear, and our team hears from families every day who are struggling to pay for childcare. And so we thought it would be helpful for this board if we talked a little bit about sort of where we are, where we're currently open for access, and where the limits continue to be in place, as well as sort of our story about where we are. Because I think in addition to the really difficult moment we find ourselves in, we also are very proud of the work we've done to update the system to serve more children and families than we ever have before. To deliver higher quality services across our system, to better reflect the actual cost of care that our providers have, to try and keep up a little bit with some of the cost of living, and to send messages about the experience we want families to have, both with us as an agency, as well as with our partners in the community. So at the same time that it's going to be a difficult conversation in terms of where we are and the struggles we see families are having, we have a good story to tell you also about what's happened and the transformations that we've had within the child care financial assistance system over the last several years. So with that, I will turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Commissioner. Afternoon, Chair, Secretary, and the board. It is my pleasure to share the CCFA story today. As the Deputy Commissioner for Family Access and Engagement, it's been officially 3 years since I started this journey, and so I think it's actually kind of an interesting day to be able to talk about it. I celebrated my 3 years on Friday, and I know it was on Friday, and I said, how great is it at the board we're going to talk about how far we've come. And as the commissioner said, we've come far. It's a story of growth, stability, and change. So we're going to do the full story of how we see CCFA today. We're going to talk about what is CCFA, like what is it made of, what's the funding, the trends, and what are the things that truly impact caseload and impact the way that we're able to serve families. This is really about telling the story about how we connect families to opportunities, support our providers, and invest in the early education system en masse. So to start us off, I'm going to just ground us, right? Ground you in the background of child care financial assistance. Child care financial assistance is funded through a state and federal partnership. And that state and federal partnership is funded through the CCDBG, which is the Child Care Development Block Grant. About 50% of EEC's total budget comes from federal funding. Those dollars don't just fund childcare financial assistance, they also fund quality, workforce supports, as well as quality improvements, and of course our agency operations. CCDF is really the backbone that supports family access, program quality, and our workforce. Federal and state resources that are used for CCDF we get a lot of questions around how is it funding? What does the funding source really look like? We take a state first funding approach with our child care financial assistance dollars. What that means is that the state essentially in the beginning of the fiscal year is funding the expenses. And then we have what we call federal reimbursement that happens through what we call claiming. And that claiming is on the CCDF block grant, including in that is TANF dollars as well. And so you'll see the blue line is what is our state appropriated funds. And so that's our direct funds. We have three line items: income eligible and DTA and DCF. And then on the red line is actually the funding. What you'll note here is that our state invests a lot into our early ed system, right? A lot. So even though in the previous slide, I'm like 50% is federal, but you can see here from this slide the investment that our governor has taken into the early ed system.
In some states, it would be zero. That almost exclusively the child care system is funded by the federal child care and development funds. And you can also see the change.
Absolutely.
And the increase in the overall budget is really attributed to state appropriations.
And you'll see in this structure, it really provides stability and predictability, right? So providers are paid on time and families don't experience interruptions in care while the state waits for federal dollars. In our current state with the federal shutdown, we've received questions like, what happens for CCDF? Are our families safe? Well, as providers are saying, will we get paid? Yes, you'll get paid because of this state first funding approach. Here's the fun part. So our child care financial assistance programs. So CCFA supports children for birth up to 13 and 16 if a child has a disability. We not only just serve early children and infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, we also serve school-age children. So those are our children that are participating in after school and summer camp. Right, after school and summer camp. We have 3 programs. We have income eligible, DTA related, and DCF related. Our income eligible are families who are within 50%. They're coming in up to 50% of the SMI, and they're able to maintain their eligibility up to 85%. Those families access, income eligible families access child care financial assistance through the statewide wait list, which is subject to available funding. Our DTA and our DCF related families, they come in through a direct referral and they have guaranteed access. So that means they're not required to go on the wait list. They're able to have immediate access. DTA related families are those families who have an active DTA case, or there is a very small population of SNAP employment and training families that will have access to DTA related care as well. What's key to note about DTA and DCF is that we will continue to support them up to 2 years after their case have closed with DTA or with DCF. And I'm going to move to the forms of assistance. So we talked about the 3 programs, and those 3 programs equate to 2 forms of assistance. So our forms of assistance are vouchers and contracted seats. Vouchers are what I like to call portable and flexible for families. Contracted seats are fixed subsidized seats in specific programs. So vouchers, they ensure that families have flexibility to choose their providers. Contracted seats, they offer greater stability and predictability for programs. Right. What's key to note between vouchers and contracted seats is one is flexible and portable, the other is fixed. So vouchers for income eligible families is based on funding availability. So that means if there's no funding, there's no access to vouchers for income eligible families. DTA and DCF families will receive immediate access to DCF to vouchers. Now, on the other side, you have our contracted seats. Contracted seats access is based off of the seats that were awarded to those specific programs. And so it's limited to the number of awarded seats, regardless if it's an income eligible family or a DCF related family. Key to note on contracted seats is they provide a supply for our more vulnerable populations. That's what we call our priority populations, which is homeless families, parents under 24, and our department and our DCF related families.
Can I just say a couple things about vouchers and contracts? The first thing I wanted to just mention is that we are among a few states that have such a strong mix of contracts and vouchers. So there were years when many other states moved almost exclusively to a voucher system. And we really maintain the mix as a way to ensure that there is an opportunity to purchase sort of, as Tyrese said, in areas that we really need to. One of the ways we leaned in the re-procurement was also infant seats, to make sure that you're actually purchasing a supply of services that you need. On the contracts, we can also do things like support services. So if we need to add a social worker or other services, contracts are really an important mechanism for that versus vouchers, which offer sort of a broader range. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I think it's embedded in entire, is just to be really clear that the eligibility requirements for families are exactly the same, whether you're getting served through a contract or you're getting served through a voucher. So if it's income eligible, contract, or a voucher, the eligibility rules for a family, service need, income are exactly the same. So there's no difference between the two there.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because I appreciate the overview. It's reminding me of my days serving families. How,
complicated.
It's extremely complicated for families involved. Is that something that will be sort of worked into? Because I think that the issue is, right, people know that the wait list is closed. And so how do they get care? They could get care through a contracted seat, right?
So it's technically the wait list is not closed. What is closed is the access. So we keep the wait list open
for some.
Yeah, it feels
for vouchers, for income eligible vouchers that aren't siblings.
Yes.
You think that's complicated? I don't understand. Right. So. We'd be happy for your feedback on, a lot of what we're trying to do through the family portal is just make the interaction with the agency that much simpler. So they don't have to make a call to get on a list and then they'll get a letter and what does that mean and all of those things. So I think the more we can make the front-facing interaction with the agency simpler in a way that people understand and do their work now with banks or businesses and other places, the more that we can drive simplicity into the communication with families at the point of contact with the EC. And we're certainly trying to build that in, as well as simplifying materials and other things. But really, it's going to be in that transaction.
Yeah.
And ensuring that in that transaction there is a human touch. So you're not just adding, even for those families who prefer self-service, but there's still a call. There's still some kind of interaction where it's like, hey, do you understand what this means, right? You're on the wait list.
For human interaction, right?
Yes. The option for human interaction, but it allows for families to be able to get additional information, because we often hear, as well as, they'll call and say, well, how will we know? We hope through the portal we'll be able to communicate when funding is available. And so that would relieve some of the stress of the wait or the having to continue and calling to see what their current status is.
And we certainly don't think a parent should have to know.
No.
Right? Like, I would like a contracted seat and, it should be simpler about what exactly is the information that we need from a family to know if they're eligible and if there's access for them. So,
yeah, and often, it's a good point, Commissioner. Often families don't know, right? They just know that they're receiving assistance. And when they ask different questions or something comes up, that's when sometimes they know that they're in a voucher seat, they have a voucher versus a contract. What we hope is that it'll be more seamless as we continue to modernize our system and really shift even some of our language. So if you've noticed from probably when we presented this before, we've tried to add some other details or shift some of our wording so that we can explain better what are some of the differences. So I'm going to move to our forms of assistance and what our spending is. So in the two graphs, you'll see on the left shows the spending by program, so income eligible, DCF, and DTA. You'll see that you'll see 54% is our income eligible caseload, and then it's almost an equal split between DCF and DTA. We spend about a little over $15,000 annually per child, and that is more than half of EUC's budget. What I like to add that included in these funds is our per child daily rate, the additional services the commissioner talked about in the contracts, the supportive services, those wraparound supports for families of a social worker or a family-facing worker that can help families connect to other services and supports, and other things like transportation, right? Transportation for families, whether they're on a voucher or a contracted seat, if they're eligible, they receive transportation, and if the program has it. It also includes other things like our special needs funding for our children who have additional needs, including also language access, right? And so we provide translation services, not just to the families EEC is in contact with, but we also have our providers, they have access to the same translation and interpretation services that we do for our families. And that's important because families should be able to communicate with us in their native language so that they understand what they're reading and they understand what our policies and our procedures are. Sure. So the special needs flex funding it's an application for a program of essentially applies. So there's a child in the program, they may need a one-on-one support, they're on an IEP, they can request for EEC to fund that additional staff person, or it could also be other things like educational materials. And so they submit an application to our team, the program submits it. The program will talk to the family about the child's needs, they'll ask for some additional information, and they'll submit it to us, and we would approve it. It is a temporary support, and so it's limited to a year. It is an area that we're looking at in the upcoming year of how we can make some changes to it so that, one, more programs are aware of it, and also that we can make sure we're maximizing the use of it for the children who need it the most.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a really important resource for a program either is struggling with a child's behavior and they need additional support in the classroom or an additional staff person, which is most often what happens in order to maintain that child successfully in the program. Or sometimes it's at enrollment when they recognize the behavior needs that the child has and they recognize that there's additional, but we're going to be taking a closer look at it because it is part of a suite of things that we look at in terms of behavior support. I wanted to mention too that the $15,000 annual per child, just to recognize that is an average, and obviously infant care we pay much higher, part-time school age care we pay much lower. So, to really understand the cost per child, this helps us understand total spending, but below that number is a pretty big variation.
Tyrese, can you share or Eric or somebody, and I know if you don't know it, you can get back to us, but generally speaking, even just looking at the state dollar investment and the evolution of this program, that this pie chart with income eligible, DCF, DTA, like what did that look like 5 years ago?
5 years ago?
Generally, like if
let me take a look at my notes.
Okay. Like I'm just curious to see if that pie is changing over time. That's all.
Yeah. So later on in the presentation, you'll be able to see the trends of the caseload and the spending over time.
Okay.
I can say I don't know about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But let me see here. 2 years ago, in FY23, so that DCF DTA portion of the pie made about 44% of the pie, whereas you see here it's 46% in FY25. So that sounds like a really small 2 percentage point increase, but in real terms, it is huge. That's $175 million. And in terms of children served in that time, that's about 5,300 new children served above FY23. So if you look at that, it's the size of the city of New Bedford's elementary school population, right? from K through 4.
Yeah, I know, you just pulled that out, so, yeah, and, so you'll see, I'm like, how do you know that one?
Yeah, right. Random trivia.
Simple, yes.
What else are in your notes?
I know, well, and there was a slide on this in the appendix that we took out, we said we'll give it to the board if they want it, but you put your finger on it, the DCF and DTA caseload have been growing at a
Yes.
And I know there's a chart that shows it.
at a faster rate for a number of reasons that the team will talk about, not the least of which we have controls on the income eligible right now, and DCF and DTA remain open as immediate access.
Jen, Maria, did you have a?
Oh, I had a question, but maybe I think I know the answer. Is there a wait list for DTA DCF services? No, right? Unlike the green part of the pie chart, the blue and the red, sort of as the need grows, it gets bigger, as you just noted, right? That caseload got bigger over time. Is that true? Like, I just didn't know how to think about that.
So when you say DTA, DCF services, is there a wait? Because the way that the line item is set up, it is more of an entitlement. We're using the language of guaranteed access. So their wait is just a matter of, scheduling an appointment.
Exactly, yeah.
Is scheduling an appointment and getting in. There is no wait for them to have access. And so they have the access. The DCF families have access through the contracts for the additional support services. Vouchers do not necessarily include those additional supports, though we know that many of the programs they are still providing supports to all families in their programs.
But this is one of the most important things we hope the board comes away with and others know, which is that these are very different kinds of programs. And even when we're thinking about caseload projections,
yes,
and understanding how many families we can serve, the income eligible line item is appropriated an amount of funds every year. And we are doing a better job these days of spending exactly up or over, exactly up to the funds that we have available. So the legislature, the governor will propose, and the legislature will finally appropriate, and there will be a number for income eligible that is included in the budget. So 564 million here. And our job is to take as many families as we can off of the waiting list and spend every dollar we possibly can that's been appropriated for income eligible families so they have access. But we are not supposed to go over that appropriation. That's why there's a wait list. We hit the number that we can afford, and we have families on the waiting list. Siblings remain open, so if a family's already enrolled and they have a new baby, then we will enroll that. DCF and DTA, we have to take them as they are referred. That is what the line item says. So it is effectively treated like an entitlement. And the language basically says, if you spend more than we gave you, you need to file a supplemental budget so you can continue to serve families from DTA and DCF that are referred. We do not have that language on the income eligible side.
So they're priority.
Yeah.
DCF and DTA are more immediate access. It's really two separate programs, right? So income eligible, a family applies, they go on the waiting list, they are enrolled from the waiting list into a contract seat or get a voucher when funding's available. DCF and DTA refer directly. So they refer directly to CC&R for a voucher, they get that immediately. If there is a wait, it's while they're trying to find and select a program that matches their needs and the age of their child. And for DCF, it's the same. It's a closed referral system, so they don't touch down on the waiting list. It's separate programs.
Yeah.
Maria.
Go ahead.
So the last part of my question, I just said 1A and 1B. When you are 50% SMI for the income eligible, different line item, different program, different rules. Can you qualify for TFDC, or can you get yourself into the blue or the red bucket easily and get the full package,
maybe
or
the
at least
red,
on the red side, not the blue side.
So that's if you're eligible. So the TANF program has a very, their eligibility is lower
lower than
eligibility.
that, okay. So
And
there
so
is this
most
gap,
working families are not eligible for TANF.
Yep.
And so they may also they may be able to access if they're participating in the SNAP Employment and Training Program and receiving SNAP. But other than that, they would have to be eligible. Now for DCF, it's a little different. If they've worked with, they may have worked with DCF in the past, right? If it was within the last 2 years, then they may have access there. Given where we're at with the wait list, with funding being limited on the income eligible side, folks are asking, our family access administrators are exploring, they are asking the questions like, have you worked with DTA before? Have you worked with DCF? So exploring some of those options. When we hear from families as well, there are income eligible families who may be homeless, right? And they may be homeless, and so they may have access to a contracted seat through in a homeless contracted seat. And so there are other ways, but it is very, it is limited, and that's why it's hard for us to say that there's any guaranteed access other than for DTA and DCF families.
No, it's super helpful. Thank you.
Maria.
You kind of answered the question just now. I mean, I'll just stress the point that, communities, especially smaller communities, when things are known through word of mouth, they hear that the wait list is closed. No, the wait list is not closed. Access is closed.
But they say wait list is closed.
That's what they hear, and then they don't. I mean, I think we need to do a better job somehow, as maybe providers, the CCRNRs, the department, just educating, the families, saying like, okay, access is closed, but there are some ways to get financial assistance. I think a lot of the families, and in my personal observation, a lot of the families don't even try. They either just look for a relative to leave their children in, or our fear is that, they're leaving it somewhere is unlicensed or not the safest place. So I just feel like, I do worry about the external message that, we need to get stronger at. And same thing with, and this is a good story actually, the CCRNR, at least in Region 3, and I think all of them, but I only know the numbers for Region 3 right now, they have, they hired a full-time person just to disseminate the information on special education funding, special needs funding. And our caseload on that has increased significantly in Region 3, and the number of, the amount of money that we're spending on that region alone has increased significantly just because of the amount of awareness that there is there. So I do think budget-wise, I think we also need to plan, as we increase awareness.
There's an increasing amount going, which tracks to what we're hearing about the needs of kids and programs.
Correct. Yeah. So, and it is a little complicated I will say, it's a little complicated to apply for that funding. And I am encouraged to hear that you are going to look at it and, trying to make it, again, more awareness, but also more accessible.
Absolutely.
I think it's really important and we can talk about this a little bit when we look at the wait list, but we have contracts for income eligible seats that do come open right now. And so a contracted provider that has an income eligible contract may have an opening and they have to go to the wait list to enroll a family. So it's very important that people do get themselves on the waiting list. But we do see, and you'll see this in the data on the current wait list, that people hear it's closed. And so often when things aren't moving, we actually see a drop on the wait list instead of an increase. When things are moving, we'll often see an increase in families on the wait list.
Yeah, and that's directly related to the way that families understand the system and how the wait list operates. So the other side of our slide is it just shows you the funding base of the funding from vouchers to contracts, and so you'll see vouchers is at 62% and contracts is at $416 million. What's key to note is and we've talked about it a little bit, but on the contract side, we re-procured the contracts for the first time in 15 years. It wasn't an increase. It didn't expand access on the contract side, but we're paying actually a lot more for the seats from 2009 to now, right? We're paying almost double from what we paid in 2009, and included in that is the additional supports to wrap around those families. And I'm happy to share that 69% of our providers are now accepting child care financial assistance, which we're pretty excited about. And that means we're serving more children more children have access to different programs and higher quality programs, hopefully in the communities that they serve, and they're not being turned away. All right, so this tells you, I just showed you, told you a little the story of like, what is CCFA, what's the forms of the assistance, the different type of programs, and now we're gonna transition into the data behind the story. So I'm gonna turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Tyrese. Thank you very much, everybody, to welcome me here today. It's nice to see you all again. As Tyrese mentioned, we're going to be exploring in the next few slides some trends, both historical and financial, for CCFA, the children it serves, and how those services are funded. We're also going to explore later on some of the key factors driving that change. So as you can see from this two-line chart, we're looking at the number of children receiving CCFA by program type, as Tyrese explained. So this top red line is the income eligible program, and the lower blue line is DCF DTA. Is it not blue?
It's
orange.
Oh, I'm colorblind.
Which we all know.
We're
It's
like,
inside joke, really.
we're smiling.
Our caseload slides are not accessible for Eric. Yeah.
I was okay with red.
There you go.
In any case, so from this high level view, you can see that there was a dip going back historically, especially post-COVID. So in the middle of COVID, let's say, so 2021, for both programs. And since that period of time, we've seen steady growth for both income eligible and DCF DTA. The income eligible caseload increased by nearly 14,000 from its low, while DCF and DTA caseload increased by 13,000 over the same period. What's less obvious from this chart is the rate of change between those two. We'll dive into the details of that in some of the future slides, but just to preview that, those increases that I mentioned, 14,000 for IE, 13,000 for DCF DTA, respectively represent 57% growth for income eligible and 78% growth for DCF and DTA. So you have that guaranteed access growing more rapidly than income eligible. Now this rapid growth shows the demand side of childcare funded by CCFA. And it's only one side of the coin. As Tyrese mentioned, 69% of our providers now accept CCFA, and that's the supply side. We'll just take a closer look at next.
I'll just say, I mean, I was just doing the, like, I don't love the caseload term, by the way. Like, it's number of kids served. Like, right, like we do have to talk about it a little bit differently, but it's close to 70,000 kids that are being served by this system on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That's the summary, right? Okay.
And does this number include the homeless and young parent and so it includes
It's the entire
everything?
caseload.
Okay.
So homeless and young parent are income eligible. They fall within income eligible as well.
Okay, great.
Cases.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. we're like.
So what you'll see here in these charts are the bars represent the growth in participating childcare programs, CCFA participating childcare programs, by region from October of 2023, 24, and 25. So what this means is that these programs have either a voucher agreement or a contract in place to serve children receiving CCFA. They might also have both. And you'll see that in all regions of the Commonwealth, the percentage of providers willing and able to provide care to families receiving CCFA has grown over the past 2 years. So what does that mean for expanded access and availability of seats for families? It means that there's more access since 2 years ago. There's more options for care, such that there are 1,000 more programs today able to serving at least one child receiving CCFA than there was 2 years ago. And it's those numbers you see in that kind of call out box there. Today we're serving, programs I should say are serving 57, at least 57,000 programs are serving a child receiving CCFA versus 4,700 last year.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this a little bit in the dynamics, but obviously it's a number of things that are contributing to that. We've increased the rates, and we're going to look at that in a minute. And so that makes it more attractive and closes the gap between what a private family could pay and what the state has been paying. We've been incentivizing participation in childcare financial assistance through the C3, or the Commonwealth Cares for Children program. This year, for the first time, it's going to be a requirement per statutory language that program's a test. So we expect to see some dynamic changes here as a result of that. And we also have tried to make it easier to do business with EEC, so simplified paperwork and those kinds of things. So we think all three of those things are likely contributing to why more programs are willing to work with us on childcare financial assistance.
Just a clarification and update on this slide. For Northeast and Metro Boston, I see either an issue with the numbers or the bars, and I'm wondering if you want to give clarification to, is it 78 or 77? We see a bar going up at 77, and then 83 and 83 are uneven, and so.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what the percentage represents is the percentage of all the programs that are able to
Within that region.
Within, yeah, the percentage of programs
that are
that have it.
participating, that could be in that region.
So the denominator is
So-
increased.
So
Yeah.
the denominator is increased. Okay. Thank you.
We should make sure we're clear on that, though, yeah.
So now you saw a bit of both the demand and supply side. We're gonna turn our attention here to income eligible wait list, another side of demand which has also grown. This data here shows the number of families on the wait list since July of 2024, up through the September of 25. And what we see here is that this growth in supply that we just looked at really has helped families receive access, but there's still work that clearly remains to be done. Overall, you can see that when access was opened up, the growth, as Commissioner and Maria had mentioned earlier, there was an increase in the number of families applying for the program and being waiting for care on this wait list. And when it's settled at about 31,000 since January of this year, so this is what you see with that flat line right there in the middle of the chart. And that's when access was closed.
Limited.
Limited. Limited.
I don't know why people think it's closed.
So access was limited, so it provides, to the extent, Maria, you were mentioning earlier about how does word of mouth get around and how do our families think about accessing, getting in touch with, and receiving CCFA?
I think one important thing to note, maybe you were about to do this, Tyrese, which is that this is currently at the current income eligibility requirements, which initial eligibility, you have to be at or below 50% of the state median income to qualify to get, and this is a soft eligibility, so anyone could say they were and get on the list. We're working on that too, but that's the current eligibility. Statutory language that was included in the fiscal year 25 budget increased the initial eligibility to 85% of state median income. Right now, you stay on till 85% of state median income, but the initial eligibility is at 50%. Effective in January, we'll be implementing that required statutory change, which will increase that initial eligibility up to 85% of state median income. So we will anticipate a growth in the number of families who could put themselves on the waiting list if they chose to.
Yeah, I was also going to say, Commissioner, that flat line just reflects somewhat what you were saying, Maria, word of mouth. So funding was limited. We've limited funding really in 2024. We started limiting funding. Word of mouth, it didn't get out, right, until later. And you can see that flat line where folks were like, wait, because there was this transition period where we had folks who were like in the processing stage, right? So they were in the processing stage when we were limiting funding, and so we still provided funding for those families. And then you see the flat line as the word of mouth got out that that access was limited for some.
I'll just say I appreciate your comment because I think this is why it's important to talk about so that we lean into that, right? Like it'd be very easy to admire the number growing, but like to continue to be talking about it and only helps us talk to our partners about it in the legislature, et cetera, on how we prioritize some of this stuff. So I appreciate the conversation because it will help us arm all of us to be talking about this in the right way as we think about, what's to come.
Yeah, and what's something I've been thinking about too as we talk about the wait list is the changes that we are implementing by increasing the 85%. We're going to have more folks coming in, but we also had some additional requirements within the FY25 changes to really have equal priority for those priority populations. But we can't forget the income eligible families who may not have priority. And so really being thoughtful, thinking about equity for all families, right? All families, regardless if they're, if they have a certain priority or not, just looking at ways that we can, when we have additional funding, reach out, maximize access for families as best as we can.
I'm curious, do we have any interesting data around differentiating between center-based programs and, and our family-based? Okay, we don't.
So with the family portal, families will have the option. They will be able to tell us what they're most interested in. And so I think through the family portal, we will have better data so that we can see what are most of these families. Are they looking for family child care? Are they looking for a center-based program? Yeah. Okay. And so we also, through the portal, we're going to have all of our options, right? We want to be able to ensure that families know what's available, available options to them.
Okay, good.
Quick plug for the portal. I think that's one of the great things about it is that we can only measure what we kind of count, right? Collect, exactly. So by collecting more and trying to learn more about our families trying to access this program, we'll be able to get greater insights into it. And to your point, Chair, help manage.
Yeah, it ties to our first agenda item on the strategic plan, right? And the work, like a lot of this stuff, we're gonna have data to really start to figure out what's happening, right? And how we can adjust and how we can build policy and programs around it for data that we need, but may just not have right now to do that. So that's why I think the work, the next 2 years or so with the portal and other things are gonna be really important as we think about this in particular.
Yeah, will help us better serve the families.
Yeah.
Is there another question before I move on? Okay. So I think where things really get interesting with the data we do have on the wait list is if we drill down a little bit further. So what you're seeing here is a snapshot of the wait list in September, broken down by region as well as age group. Now, it probably comes as no surprise that the Northeast, being the most populous region in the Commonwealth, has the highest number of folks on the wait list. It's about 9,700 across all those age groups, and that region makes up about a third of the wait list. However, I think the really interesting takeaway from this visualization is that we see that the demand, if you will, for care increases as children age, right? So in most regions, I'll say. So you have infant toddler need on as like the left bar for each region, and then school age to the right. And we see that number going up and to the right.
So that's for after-school programming?
Well, that I think is the interesting question, exactly.
Mhm.
It's one of those things that for
Summer as well.
Yep, before school, after school, out of school time, summer care, is really when we see, it helps us in the finance office plan like cash flow throughout the year, because we need to pay attention to those months like the summer where we see an uptick in children being served, as well as school vacation months. So like around Christmas time, February, April, those months of the year.
I think it's important just to note too that the age bands influence this, right? So the school age are between 5 and 12, up to 13. So that's a much bigger group of children than infants and toddlers too. So partly contributing to why we see so many school age. But we also know there's a huge demand out there.
So we talked a little bit about that before and after school time, out of school time, and it's that seasonality that's one of like the underlying dynamics around the ups and downs you saw in the earlier caseload chart, the overall chart. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Ashley, who will walk us through some of those dynamics.
Hi, everyone. So my turn now. Tyrese gave us a really great overview of CCFA and the program and how it works. Eric showed us some information on the number of children that we serve and those who are seeking care. And I'm here to talk to you about the different factors and dynamics that impact the numbers that you saw in Eric's graphs. And so in terms of dynamics, we're thinking about number of children that we obviously serve, but also the costs associated with those children over time and how these different dynamics impact number of children and those costs. So this slide highlights some of those factors. I think the ones that I really want to touch upon have to do with the family access team and the enormous amount of work that Tyrese and her team has been leading to make policy and regulatory reforms to the CCFA system to make it easier for families to access and afford childcare. So Tyrese can definitely speak to this better than I, so feel free to chime in. But some of the things that they've done is to waive family fees for families experiencing homelessness, not count certain income like Social Security income. Therefore, the family's fees are lower. Strengthening our partnerships with DTA and DCF to make it easier and streamlined to process referrals. As we've talked about, we have a new contract system that provides additional supports and covers more for transportation. So all of these things sort of come together, I think, to paint a picture of the different factors that impact the number of children that we serve and the associated cost with them. So turns out easier access means more children, but also means more expenses for the agency. And so the next couple slides are just going to try to articulate some of these dynamics more specifically using some of the data that we have on the children within these various programs.
Before you go to the next slide, I just want to highlight a little more what Ashley is talking about in regards to some of these factors. So the regulatory and policy changes we made allow us to hold on to families longer, right? And so families are with us longer, DTA, DCF families, and that allows those families to be more stable as they transition off of TANF assistance or as their DCF case closes. So they are with us longer, meaning they do not have a parent fee longer, and it's also easing the cliff effect, right? And so as you do that, you see we are going to pay more for those families. Some of the other changes as it relates to homeless families, we used to count their income. Their income, we have the flexibility through CCDF not to waive their income. So we waive their income, and now homeless families have no parent fee. So that means EEC is paying a higher cost for those homeless families. And we also had a limit before on how long you could be a homeless family receiving child care financial assistance, and we got rid of that through some of the policy reforms. And then we stopped counting child support and SSI income, right? And so that means EEC is paying more for those same families. And then for DTA and DCF, there were flexibilities that were allowed for DTA's TANF families during COVID. And so they shifted their work program requirements, and they started reinforcing them. With that reinforcement, that increased the DTA caseload. More families now are engaged in employment and training programs and work, and so they need childcare. There you go, increased costs for EEC. Another thing, DCF simplified their referrals. So before it was a paper referral, they shifted to in their system. wow, more families have access, right? And so we saw the increase, not just from the reforms, but from the system changes that were happening with our partner agencies. And then when you look at the program and fiscal drivers, we re-procured the contracts, right? We made some changes there. Transportation, within the contracts, we were paying for it in our former $24 per day rate. Now we're actually paying the one-way or two-way transportation for each family. So that's an additional cost that comes out of our caseload as well. So we wanted to highlight like some of the factors that really are driving the trends you see in caseload, as well as the cost to EEC, including the rate increases as well. More children, rates increase. Those children now are at a higher rate each year, right? And more children come in based off of the projected growth that we project, whether it's in our income eligible caseload, our DCF, or our DTA caseload.
I'd like to insert some quickly, just so, because it's a previous slide, an observation I had on the Western and the Boston regions. The preschool numbers are actually lower there than, they actually go down. And I'm going to assume, or again, it's an assumption, but that's where pre-K is mostly available in our state, which, I mean, I think as a board member, as a group also, we also have to look after the sustainability of programs and make sure that things don't spiral out of control. Preschool rate is an important part of sustainability for programs because, again, infant and toddler doesn't pay for itself. You have to count on a number of preschool spaces for the program to be financially viable. So it's an observation. I just want to make sure that we stay aware of it, that, if that number goes down too much, we want to make sure that, okay, yeah, pre-K children are going to the public schools, but at the same time, it's like, okay, is there collaboration happening? Is there financial awareness on both sides with regards to the impact that this has on providers when they are not having as many, or or maybe
they're providing
maybe the
different
number of
types of
providers that have to
supports.
close because they don't have, or the number of classrooms that have to close because they don't have enough children. So I'm just going to put that out there.
And I can say, Maria, because I'm part of a team that's working on our next rate increase, that this is something that is absolutely on our mind, is that dynamic that you just spoke about.
I think that's a good point, Vice Chair, that, and can you clarify, is the out-of-school time, that's 5 and up?
Yes.
So I was gonna say, it is 5 and up, but we know with pre-K, there's also a need there. And so for some of the programs, then they're looking at, they're providing part-time care for those children to cover the rest of the day for those programs that don't have a full day, yes.
Okay, so is that counted? Like, that's I think in terms of the data, like, do we not see that part-time care that happens seasonally, or is that
You will
encapsulated
see it in caseload, and you'll see it in caseload, and you'll see it, I think a slide is coming up where you'll see the summer dip or variations of it.
Okay.
But we do see it partly too because of the way that we're looking at caseload. We can look at the placement, and at the placement level, it takes into account full-time or part-time.
Got it.
Plus the rate, whether it's school age rate or preschool rate.
Yeah.
So moving on, just wanting to show some slides that I think illustrate some of the dynamics that are focused on that previous slide. So we've got the DTA and DCF caseload on this graph here. The yellow line is the DTA caseload, or number of children served, and the DCF is the blue line, number of children served. And, as you can see, as we've talked about, right, the DTA red line is increasing over time. And we think that some of the contributing factors are what Tyrese just mentioned, right? Streamlining the referral process, the fact, again, that these children are, quote unquote, guaranteed access to the system no matter what. They don't go on a wait list. And so this line item, or these kids are It's more influenced by sort of demand in the market than an income-eligible child or family. The DCF, so the DTA line has increased. The DCF line you can see is sort of slightly above its low in the midst of the pandemic and is serving more children over time. But the really important, I think, thing that I wanted to mention on this slide has to do again with what Tyrese mentioned earlier, that the children who are being served through DCF, we also at the agency, right, recognize that those children may need some extra supports and services, and so we, support the program and give the program greater resources to support those children, which means that our DCF caseload is more expensive just by its nature, and so that kind of goes back to that pie chart you saw where DTA and DCF, they're being spent about the same portion, but we're serving less children in DCF than we are in DTA, so it sort of makes sense.
And for contracts, there's no DTA contracts. I want to say that too. So you're going to see more DCF children in the caseload as well, because the contract served DCF children directly, providing those additional supports. And so and you'll see that here. And the other thing to note here too is that for some DCF children, they only come in the caseload in the summer. Some of them only come in the summer, so you'll see that the higher the caseload go up in the summer, and then those children actually may not access care again until the next summer. Yeah, the rotation, sorry.
The only thing I just want to add to is we've been talking about cost a lot, and I want to make sure that when we're talking about it, it's not sort of meant to be this negative thing, right? It's only sort of reflecting that there are costs associated with serving a certain number of children, and there are costs associated with providing better care and better services. And so those are two things that I think the agency currently is weighing and trying to use its resources to go towards. This is the seasonal shift slide. So this is another dynamic that we see in our caseload, which is that, leading up to the summer months, we see an increase in the number of children being served, and then sort of that drop in the fall. And this has to do with what we've discussed, which is that there are, some children throughout the school year who perhaps are only in before and after school care, and then during the summer, they're transitioning to full day care, right? You also have many school children who might not receive CCFA during the school year, and then are involved in summer programming at a EEC licensed or funded program. And so there are both costs associated with the fact that we're serving more children during that period, but also associated with the fact that some of them are going from a part-time or part-day to a full-day amount. The next thing here is rate increases and the role that plays in some of the caseload dynamics that we see. I'm sure the board all sort of knows this, but just as a kind of refresher, right? Our rates are essentially what we pay programs for taking and serving CCFA children. And so we have been very fortunate that we have gotten some consistent investment from both the administration and the legislature to increase those levels or those amounts that we pay programs for serving CCFA children. Since FY 2019, it's been to the tune of $250 million has been appropriated to increase rates, and the average infant rate has more than doubled, and we see similar average increases across both toddler and preschool rates as well. And so, as you can see, we've been grateful that there's been consistent years in a row where the legislature says, here's a sort of pot of money for you to raise your reimbursement rates and pay for more of the cost of care for those programs. And that is a great thing. And it's also, expensive year over year. So it means greater payments to programs. It means more money for staff for those programs. It means more money for operations for those programs. It also means, hopefully, and we've seen higher participation from CCFA programs, right? So programs now seeing that it is financially viable for them to take, and care for children on CCFA because our rates have increased over time. And it also means greater purchasing power for families, right? The value of that voucher is greater and allows them greater access to the system. So these are all great things that we get from raising our reimbursement rates. And it's also more costly to maintain our sort of existing caseload or maintain the current number of children that we serve, right? So if I'm paying $100 per child one year and $103 the next, it's going to cost me more money to serve that same amount of children year over year. Historically, these have not been treated as a one-time funding for a program. It's something that we use long-term to invest in our reimbursement rates. Which sort of brings me to this last slide, which pairs our CCFA funding with our caseload, or the number of children that we serve. So in the red, you have our funding for DTA, DCF. In the blue, you've got income eligible funding. And then in the light blue, you have our funding for our rate increases. And the sort of yellow line across is our caseload. So my takeaway from this slide is, again, are very sort of grateful for the increased investment that we've been able to receive, and that has meant we're able to serve more children than we ever have before. But at the same time that we are serving more children, we are also making it more expensive to serve those children because you're seeing the sort of consistent rate increases year over year. So in practice, what you're seeing is the top of that dark blue bar in a sort of preceding year needs to be level with the combination of the red and the blue and the light blue in the year before, right, at a baseline. And so this just sort of shows the kind of dynamic between the desire to sort of serve more children and the investments that come with rates that make it more expensive to serve those children. So I think this is the last slide, so before I pass it to you. So I think the overarching theme for me is that we're, I think, really proud of the work that we've done. We're really proud that we've made it easier for families to access. That's translated to more families being served. Certainly grateful for the investments that have allowed us to do that. And resources need to go towards both the number of kids that we serve and improving the services. And we've done that effectively, and I think we're going to continue to improve, and that's what Tyrese is going to talk about now, is sort of where we currently are and what we're thinking in the future.
Yeah, actually, I think that slide is powerful. It's a lot. That's a story right there. But I do think it's not just about, to your point, the number of kids served, but it's the transportation, it's the wrap, like it's what. There's more to it than just a number or a case here. It's like meeting kids and families where they are with what we have the resources to do, and that is expensive, right?
And investments we make, like childcare is sticky, right?
It is.
So we keep the kids for as long as they remain eligible, which is often through their full age cycle in childcare. And so when we enroll new kids, we keep them, we hope, and we've done a lot to try and make sure we can keep them and have that be a consistent source for the family and the child. But so what you see over time is how it annualizes from one year to another at a greater expense. So Tyrese, I think we're a little short on time. So we've hit some of these key points that we want to sort of wrap up the story of CCFA. But so maybe just keep it high level on the things we haven't touched on yet.
Absolutely. So what you've just seen is what we've really done over the last 3 years to really strengthen the system and the impact that those changes have had statewide. Where we're at now is we're serving more children than we ever had. We believe we're supporting providers through C3 rate increases. We're listening to families and providers in everything that we're doing. We're building our capacity in data and analytics, and we're trying to modernize our system. And that's the work that we're going to continue to do. We believe that will really help us for when we're ready, right? When the system is ready to bring on more families. So as we've talked, access to vouchers is limited right now. Immediate access is open for DTA and DCF. Our priorities are around let's maintain who we currently have, and then these additional families that may be coming in through DTA or DCF or income eligible through siblings, let's be able to carry them through. we're looking at refining our approach around caseload. Some of that you saw in the way that we spoke today. You heard from Eric, you heard from Ashley's from research and data analytics, and you heard from me. We're looking at how do we look at caseload in our different roles, in our different spaces, so that when the system is and we have additional dollars is ready, we'll be able to serve families better than we were already serving them, and the system will be able to handle them, right? They'll be able to handle them. And then I'm gonna close just by saying, like, what's next? Some of what's next is we've been talking about the family portal. We want families to be able to navigate our system better, have a better understanding of what it means to access childcare financial assistance. And that's even including, like, what are your childcare options? We're launching our first family advisory council where we'll be able to have families at the table with us as we're developing policies and as we're modernizing the system. We're shifting the way that we're talking about our coordinated family and community engagement network. Like, what does that really mean? We see it as a front door for families, whether they're accessing formal care, informal care. So we're looking at doing a rebranding there and really highlighting what are the actual core services that you would get in this network. And Family Portal will help improve the ways that we're working with families in general. And then very key to all of the work that we're doing is our research and data infrastructure to help us really be able to maintain the caseload and to do it wisely and make sure we're staying within our financial constraints that we have, while also just looking at how can we continuously improve all of our programming. What I will say in closing, like, this progress really reflects the collective work across the EEC from all of the different divisions, whether it's policy, finance, IT, legal, our provider support teams. We all really have come together to align around one goal, which is really making childcare more accessible for our families and equitable. The reforms, the reprocurements, our modernization efforts, they've all set the stage for what we will believe the future will be for the system, and it'll be a better system for families to access, navigate, and get the supports they need for their children. Thank you.
And if folks are interested in looking at data on caseload, where might they find that besides in here? Ashley?
Speaking for Adrienne Murphy, our Director of Data Analytics, we have a KPI dashboard, and it has all the caseload data on there, as well as programs participating in CCFA. And the data analytics team is really behind that dashboard, and they're constantly, updating it and trying to improve it. So I encourage you all to check it out.
Link in the presentation.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
Thank you.
I know we had some ongoing conversation throughout the presentation, which I appreciate the back and forth and the dialogue. This is a topic that deserves us to spend an hour and 10 minutes on. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing that this department, this board supports. And so I'm grateful. I think it's important that we all just ground in this work on a regular basis, especially when we know what a priority I think this will be over the next couple of years. Always a priority, but I just think when we get data on changing the SMI, when we get data from the family portal, like, again, I think it'll start to continue to help us form policy and in thinking around this table on how to move forward on this. So I'm just grateful for the leadership of all of the departments that you mentioned and the three of you for the work on this.
And I'll just add, I think part of the takeaway for me with the team, and we hope for the board too, is that the number of dynamics that are influencing the caseload, managing, maximizing resources, understanding and working closely with DTA and DCF to know what's going on their side and how that might influence either costs or more kids coming over on our side. You can see there are many, many factors influencing what happens in the caseload. So the job to sort of predict or project out what might happen in order to make sure we're maximizing every dollar we can and reaching as many families is complicated. We don't want to leave any money on the table, but we also want to be good fiscal stewards, obviously, of the resources we do have. So, and it is this team and a number of others who've been really trying to refine how we do that work, really with the purpose of making sure we're meeting our obligations. Fiscally, but also reaching as many families as we can. So thank you. You did a great job. Thank you for this. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, I want to thank everyone for being here today, and especially everyone that presented. It's always such thoughtful discussion, and you can see the work and the effort and the passion and commitment in all the presentations, and just grateful to this panel, but also the ones that preceded you for spending time with us today. As the Commissioner mentioned, our next meeting will be on December 10th in Lynn at Leo. And with that, I would make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great, we'll see you in Lynn next month. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.